Your surgery, but to a parent and seeing your baby hit his ears and crying, it's heartbreaking.
That mother of a 17-month-old baby who spoke to Tom Costello. Her baby has a chronic ear infection, and her baby and she are one of thousands of parents and patients who are facing major delays across the country as the largest ever strike by healthcare workers continues into its second of 3 days. Hundreds of Kaiser Permanente hospitals are operating with non-union temporary labor after more than 75,000 Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers walked off the job on Wednesday. They are demanding better pay and benefits, but their top priority is a long-term commitment to hire more staff, arguing the system is so stressed that patient care is suffering. Joining us now from Los Angeles is NBC News national correspondent David Noriega.
In other words, patients aren't getting the professional help that they should be because there's not enough people for the industry to hire. That way a patient don't feel neglected or even abused to some extent. It just goes to show you how further into the spider hole, how far that we have gone into a secluded state of being an unproductive nation, a unproductive society. And in lots of ways it makes me angry because I'm outraged by it, because these are supposed to be the people that went to college and went to school and become educated, and these are the people that was supposed to have crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's pertaining to the professional world. And to see something like this happening to a nation that's supposed to be the greatest nation in the world is actually not only depressing, but it's demoralizing. It's demoralizing to the sense that if that was your mother, if that was your father, if that was your sister, your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband, whoever, that was laid up in the hospital, that was being neglected or rejected or was not getting proper care, it would just absolutely make whoever that was going through that furious. Mindlessly furious pertaining to what we're seeing right now unfolding in our great nation. It makes me scratch my head sometimes in wondering whether or not I'm truly still in America or not. Whenever you see stuff like this and you see all the car manufacturers going on strike and you see all this other stuff going on all over the country, you tend to wonder, am I still in the same America that I was born in 1961? That's whenever I was born. I know I'm an old man to a lot of these kids, but it makes you wonder, what the heck has happened?
As I said yesterday, I'll repeat again today, anybody who's been in a hospital in the past year or two will understand and know that the nurses and the doctors are overtaxed. There just isn't enough people to go around.
That's right, Katie. We do have updates today, by the way. Kaiser came to the workers with a new proposal that includes a 5% increase in the first year. The unions say that's still not enough. They're asking for 7%. In the meantime, the discussions, as you pointed out, are getting pretty serious. People are getting their care delayed. We've spoken to several patients who are affected by this. A lot of them are actually siding with the workers here. They blame not the strike, but the underlying staffing problems that led to the strike. We spoke to one patient who came to this hospital in LA today for an appointment. This is what he has to say.
We pay high premiums sacrificially. We get to see our own doctor only once a year. I want to ask, where is the money? Kaiser, where is the money? Because when I had a car accident and I went to my doctor's clinic, there were not even Band-Aids in his clinic. The workers have to run someplace to find them. So it's very sad. It's a very sad time that the workers are not being paid. Now we're finding out that not even the workers get paid what they're supposed to get. So where is the money?
Besides that, they're short on supplies. They're short on medication. And they don't want people to know this because they don't want to panic people. kind of like asking everybody to donate blood after there's an emergency, like 9/11. Whenever 9/11 happened, whenever Pearl Harbor happened, there was a massive amount of people that was giving blood. They don't want to get people all worked up before the incident happens. But where are we going to be? Where are we going to be? Not if it happens, but when it happens.
If the strikers don't get what they want from Kaiser this time around, they've already notified the company that they're willing to strike again, this time for 5 days in the first week of November.
So right now they're striking for 3 days. Tomorrow will be the last day of the strike, but as you said, David, they might strike for longer in the future if they don't get what they want. Thank you very much. Coming up next, what Iran says happened to this 16-year-old now hospitalized in critical condition.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
A teenage girl in Iran has been hospitalized after what activists say was an encounter with the state's morality police. A Norway-based group alleges police confronted 16-year-old Armida Jerevan on the Tehran metro for not wearing a hijab. Iran's government denies Jerevan was attacked and today released security video from the train platform. NBC's Kelly Cobeya has the latest.
Well, here's what we know so far. The girl's name is Armida Jerevan. She's 16 years old, and she's in critical condition after an incident on the Tehran metro. Her story now widely shared across social media. The question is, what happened to her? State-run media released what it says is security video from the Tehran subway station, which they say shows the 16 minutes she was there. It shows a girl with short black hair, head uncovered, boarding a train at 7:08 in the morning, then being dragged out seconds later, apparently unconscious, onto the platform. NBC News cannot verify that video's authenticity. Now, the Kurdish human rights group NGO Henga said in a blog post Tuesday that Jerevan suffered a severe physical assault at the hands of government agents and is now in a coma, posting a photo that it says is the 16-year-old in intensive care at an Air Force hospital in Iran. The group is based in Oslo and is critical of the Iranian government. The Iranian government are pushing back. The head of the Tehran metro told local media that security footage suggested Jerevan actually fell after she may have fainted because of her blood pressure dropping. But no video from inside that train has yet been released. On top of that, a couple identified as her parents have now told the same story in a video posted online by state-run media. But it's impossible to know whether they were speaking freely or under duress. And again, NBC News can't verify the video. It should also be noted that the Iranian government has repeatedly tried to cast doubt on these accounts of alleged abuse by the morality police. And today, there was yet another development with activists claiming that Jerevan's mother had been arrested, although state media denies that, citing security forces. The alleged attack is drawing international condemnation. The U.S. Deputy Special Envoy for Iran saying on X, formerly Twitter, that the U.S. is shocked and concerned by the reports. The German foreign minister also speaking out, as well as British officials. The Iranian foreign ministry accusing the U.S. and Britain and Germany of, quote, insincere concern over these reports. But the case is once again fueling anger over the treatment of women and girls in Iran more than a year now after the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini and that huge wave of protests that followed.
Kelly Cobeya, thank you very much. And that's going to do it for me today. Deadline White House starts right now.
That's the part I don't understand. Is that over here the women doesn't dress with enough clothing and gets away with it
Today,
compared with the women in other countries that dresses too much from head to toe, and it's still not acceptable with the government officials. Over here they basically run around naked, barely got a G-string, over their bodily parts out here in the public. But over there, you're not allowed to even pull the veil off your face. Do you see the extremes? The extremes, the weather extremes, the political extremes, the spiritual extremes, and all this is building. All this is building to something. And I've done watch part of this. This is the part here that I want you to watch, see right here, and what they're fixing to talk about pertaining to the extremists out there that are growing, intensifying on a day-to-day level. And I noticed that whenever Jerry Springer was doing what Jerry Springer was doing up north, whenever my niece was up there helping him towards makeup artist, but I noticed that society was becoming very, very raw and very, very gaudy, to the degree that now, instead of people being remorseful over people having something happen to them that's horrible, horrible, they actually laugh about it. They're entertained by it. Please watch.
For the country's top military official to be executed. Donald Trump has targeted a court clerk with a baseless smear that led to a gag order. He has repeatedly gone after the prosecutors who have charged him with 91 felony counts in total. And now there's an attack on migrants that has echoes to white supremacist rhetoric. On this program, we try our hardest not to ever amplify his most dangerous comments. But we're going to play them for you here today, right now, because we believe you should hear the comments from the man himself.
Nobody has any idea where these people are coming from, and we know they come from prisons. We know they come from mental institutions, insane asylums. We know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country.
Now, I don't know the whole story in behind wherever they're going to go with this, because I didn't watch all of it. But what is wrong with somebody being concerned about the people that Trump just got through mentioning? Because you do have to admit, our system over here has been too overly taxed towards basically wanting to know every little move that we make. They hone in on our telephone calls. They spy in on our emails and our Gmails. They basically are steadily profiling us. Ever since the incident happened in my life, to the point that I wound up on national news out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, I have been targeted by not only the left wing, but the right wing, and even the people that we just got through talking about in regards towards the professional community. I've read up stuff where different psychiatrists has made so many embarrassing comments about me, and the whole time while I have been out in the eyes of the public has been in the pretense of the Lord Jesus Christ, and in the pretense of, yes, peace, love, grace, forgiveness. What's wrong with those things? I thought those was all the things that the preachers had been preaching about. But the thing about the preachers is they only wanted to preach part of the truth and not all the truth. And because I'm preaching all the truth pertaining to, yes, end time, final days, it has ruffled some feathers up like you would not ever believe. I have had some of the most meanest comments about my life that is so degrading and so dehumanizing that I don't even think I got the proper words of expressing how heartbreaking that it was. How heartbreaking that it was. Once more, what's wrong with somebody being concerned about rapists, drug dealers, murderers, people that really and truly we don't have a clue, because they don't have the same type of operating system that we have over here towards overtaxing people. They undertax people. In other words, you can have a whole family live all their lives over there and they never do basically get tagged. They don't get no social security number. They basically out of sight, out of mind. How do we know what's happening? How do we know what has happened in that individual's life towards allowing for all these illegal immigrants to come in over here? How do we know? They may be rapists. They may be murderers. They may be pedophiles. So what's wrong with bringing that up in front of the newscast? Let's watch.
Poisoning the blood of our country. So much to say, right? But what makes these
poisoning the blood of our country. Yeah. We're being overrun. Yeah.
comments even more dangerous is the fact that Trump's rhetoric and his ideas, we know by now what happens to them. They seep into the fabric of a large swath of our country, largely people who identify as Republicans. Ideas that used to be unspeakable and unthinkable become acceptable, even party dogma. New York Times reports this, quote, the first time Trump talked privately about shooting missiles into Mexico to take out drug labs, as far as his former aides can recall, was early 2020. And the first...
Well, they for darn sure wouldn't like Davy Crockett, would they? It was Davy Crockett that went down there and fought with them in the Alamo with Sam Houston toward being able to, over territorial rights pertaining to us being in control of everything north of the Rio Grande, that there towards the last, Sanchez finally did surrender. But we got people over here that I guess would be on Sanchez's team that's supposed to be red-blooded Americans. I've never seen the media be so unproportionately unfair whenever it comes to wanting to jump up and down on Trump in analyzing and dissecting every word that man has to say. And I've said this all along. There's lots of things that Donald Trump that I don't agree with, and there's lots of things that Donald Trump has said pertaining to our military and trying to protect its people, and pertaining to our government that's running out of control toward being trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. There's a lot of that stuff I do agree with, pertaining to some of the things that he talks about. But as of now, and I'm pretty sure I'll continue to stay this way, neither party, it don't matter if it's Republican Party or Democrat Party, as far as I'm concerned, they both need to be nullified out of existences pertaining to our American government. Need to have a clean house, a sweep out, just like Donald Trump talked about, towards draining the swamp, bringing in new blood, new ideals, and basically getting rid of the suckers, people that are basically nothing more than just extortionists. And that begins right here in my home county that I'm living in right now. People working up at the courthouse and working for supposedly child abuse services, drug abuse services, all these other things that's supposed to be protecting us, but yet no, they want to spend time in analyzing and dissecting people like Donald Trump, or people like myself, or other people that voices their opinion about what that they can see that's occurring that should not be happening.
First time those comments became public was when his second Defense Secretary, Mark Esper, wrote in his memoir that Trump had raised it with him and asked if the U.S. could make it look as if some other country was responsible. Esper portrayed the idea as ludicrous. Yet instead of condemning the idea, some Republicans publicly welcomed word that Trump had wanted to use military force against the drug cartels on Mexican soil, and without the consent of Mexico's government.
There has to be some sort of stance other than us spending hundreds of millions of dollars every year and still not succeeding in stopping one illegal immigrant from going over the Rio Grande. There has to be some sort of a measure of awakening to their government officials over there. If not, they're going to continue to keep coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. And eventually, whenever you get so many Mexicans over here and they keep multiplying, and you let them wiggle and work their way into the government systems, probably beginning on the local level first, and then going to the state level, and then going to the federal level, the next thing you know, we'll have Sanchez running this country. And it won't be Sanchez in the bodily form, but it will be Sanchez in the political form that will basically take the American people over in what the Russians said and never firing a shot. Because if you allow for them to come in the way that they're coming in, there's going to be irreversible damages, and people like Trump speaks out against it, and because of it, they jump up and down on his chest.
This notion of a military intervention south of the border has swiftly evolved from an Oval Office fantasy to something approaching Republican Party doctrine. And as we all know all too well, given the events of January 6th, when a mob of Trump supporters believing Trump's lies about the U.S. election results stormed the Capitol, the impact of Trump's rhetoric is easily seen on the streets. New York Times reports this on anti-migrant protests that took place in New York City last month. Quote, the loudspeaker on a quiet Staten Island street blasted demands at 117 decibels, louder than a dog barking in your ear. Pointed at a school that is sheltering some of the 110,000 migrants who have arrived in New York City.
I want to back that up just for a second. What was he saying about decimals? Let's listen to this one more time.
The election results stormed the Capitol. The impact of Trump's rhetoric is easily seen on the streets. New York Times reports this on anti-migrant protests that took place in New York City last month. Quote, the loudspeaker on a quiet Staten Island street blasted demands at 117 decibels.
Okay, that particular incident right there that they're talking about was somebody that was speaking on a loudspeaker, 117 decibels. That's what they're saying. It basically reminds me of what happened whenever I was in Humphreys County, Waverly, Tennessee, after they had done what they had done to me. Towards basically, I went into a doomsday shop and just looked around, made a couple comments, told the people what kind of, the store looked good, everything was, everything they had in there was very appealing. And before 2 or 3 days later, I got my probation officer from Weakley County and her supervisor, as well as a deputy, out here at my front door, ordering for me to go get a psychiatric study done because I had said something to the guy that was working in the store that he disapproved of, and the next thing you know, they put out some sort of a national bogey on me that I was some sort of a lunatic and that I needed to be examined by a doctor to make sure that I was fit in being out in the eyes of the public. So I didn't like what happened to me. And I don't think anybody would have had, especially if you just go into a public business, walk around, make a couple statements, and then leave. So I go back up to Waverly County, Humphreys County, because at the time I had a camper staying at Pebble Campground, had been up there all year. So I got acquainted with the people up there. So I go back up there because my camper was still up there, go to the courthouse and start protesting. I'm walking around with a sign. I'm walking around with a Bible. I'm speaking my piece pertaining to what had occurred. And the next thing you know, the deputy, actually the chief of police, comes stopping there. He said, Juby, we're getting complaints on you, man. If you don't mind, could you just kind of roll things up and give it up for right now? Really? Give it up for right now. Here I am out there without a enhanced speaking device. I'm just talking like
The
I'm
message
talking
could
like
not have
I'm,
been more unwelcoming.
like I'm
Quote,
talking right now, and yet no, I was talking too loud according to the people across the street that made the telephone call towards bringing the chief of police out there. Once more, being gagged. So I go back about a week or two later and I put orange fluorescent tape over my mouth and just walk around with different signs. I never said a word, just walking around with big signs, and I'm going in people's front doors and in their windows and stuff, and basically getting my message across that way.
Plus, former top State Department official during the Obama administration, Rick Stengel's here. Also joining us, Princeton University professor and distinguished political scholar, our friend Eddie Glaud's here, and the CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, is back. Jonathan, I want to start with you. I want to read you something that our friends over at Mad Oak Blog have reported. This is from Laura Barron Lopez, a White House correspondent for PBS, who told her viewers last night, quote, I checked with a historian, Ruth Ben-Gayat, and she said that language that he's using echoes language used in Nazi propaganda by Adolf Hitler when Adolf Hitler actually said that Jewish people and migrants were, quote, causing a blood poisoning of Germany. Your reaction to Trump's comments?
Well, in some ways it feels like there we go again, Nicole. I mean, to be frank, I don't know how much Donald Trump is a student of history or if he even reads books and what's on his nightstand. But I do know, as the reporter said last night on PBS NewsHour, that the language that he used in that interview is the same or intended to evoke the kind of language that's been used by many who hold vicious anti-immigrant, racist, anti-Semitic views like Hitler. And I'm sure other nativist world leaders, and the way that phrase was inserted into this sort of crazy claims he was making that are totally untrue, leads me to believe that someone gave him that line. And we have seen over the years how Trump uses racist, hateful, despicable language and how it evokes violence. Think about 2019 and the claims about an invasion from Mexico that led a man to go to the Walmart in El Paso and murder dozens of people because they appeared to be from Mexico. Or think about his evocation of the Great Replacement Theory that led a man in 2018 in October to the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh and murdered Jewish people while they were worshiping. Violent rhetoric leads to violent actions.
But yet now our government can be out of touch with reality and we're just supposed to sit back and not say nothing about it?
Are deeply alarmed because whether
we're alarmed. We are alarmed. That's the part that that these newscasters don't get. The people are alarmed by our safety and by our children's safety and our children's safety. Who is letting the guard down? Who has allowed for the wolf to come in and basically devour the hens inside the chicken coop?
And that's the real...
Our government has.
What do we do?
We need responsible parties around the president to finally say enough. Like, how do you put someone in place when they're using the kind of language that again and again and again has gotten people killed? I mean, we need a kind of accountability among those, the kingmakers, if you will, in the Republican Party, to just say, time out, pull the emergency brake. We can't go through this again. The country can't afford it. Marginalized communities can't afford it. None of us can.
I mean, Jonathan, I guess I worry that we are failing to imagine that this is his intent. I mean, you just said responsible people around Donald Trump. Who would that be? I mean, there aren't any, and that's by his design. He's a candidate for president. He could have anyone he wanted around him, and the people that are around him are the people he wants around him. I mean, if this is the design, then what should we do?
Look, this is a conundrum, but like my job at ADL is to keep people safe. So I can't necessarily.
Well, you're doing a bad job, buddy.
But I'm talking to Jewish people every day. We just co-chaired the March on Washington with 155,000 people, lots of African Americans. Whether you're an HBCU or a black church or a synagogue or a Chinese American community center, people are afraid. Their anxiety levels
because the government's not protecting them.
And so when you ask me who are the responsible people, President Obama used to say, we are the ones we've been waiting for. So the way I see it, we have just got to put on the storm windows, if you will, batten down the hatches, because I can't afford to wait in some abstract way. I've got to make sure I'm keeping people safe right now.
Eddie Glad, I pressed John.
He's failing in his job every day. I wouldn't even admit that I had that job.
News, right, that satisfies what he accurately describes as really a conundrum, a challenge of our times, but because I worry that he's revealed himself over and over and over again. If he is reelected, he will take away this network's media licenses. He's gone after Comcast. If he is elected, he will prosecute General Mark Milley for treason, a crime punishable by death. If he's reelected, he will pardon the hundreds of insurrectionists who have been prosecuted and convicted by juries of their peers. If he is reelected, he has told us what he will do. And my concern today is about the rest of us. What should the rest of us be doing?
Be frightened.
Well, we have to do exactly what you're doing right now, and that is foreground what he said. He is who he is. We can't just simply do it at, it can't be on page, the fold of the, right? It has to be the headline, the lead story in this instance. We have to tell the truth about what he intends to do. And we have to understand that what you said in the introduction, Nicole, is really important. It has infected the Republican Party. And I think there's another element to this, and I don't know what you think about this, but because Republicans are at the center of gravity of our politics, they define the frame of the debate. When they get infected with this stuff, we all do. And so you see...
And that's why neither party needs to be in power. They need to be nullified, completely taken out of their positions.
Foreground this as deliberately and as effectively and every chance we get, because if we don't, he's going to end up in the White House and communities are going to be in danger at even a higher level.
Now that's really gaslighting.
And this is
what they're doing right now is gaslighting. They're just building the story up even intensely more.
I think it manifests itself in the fact that this isn't a story that just happened. This happened a couple days ago. Mehdi Hasan flagged it on Twitter, and I saw my friends and colleagues at Morning Joe do this before me. So some of it is that we're all numb to the crazy and the craven, and the brain in a traumatized state has to make adaptations. So we say, well, he won't win. There's some good signs in the midterm. Here's my concern. If he does win, he's told us all the things he's going to do. And my concern is we're on sort of the eve of a presidential cycle. Even in our conversations about the House Republicans, is it going to be Scalise or Jordan? It doesn't matter. Neither one of them voted to certify Joe Biden's election. Joe Biden was elected on the same ballot that both of their names were on, and yet they called, knowing falsely, knowing it was BS, they claimed fraud. I mean, I worry that we still hear in year 8 of the...
Now that part there, I go along with what they're talking about towards it was wrong and what they was doing towards telling lies about the election.
And I'm not only thinking, I'm thinking about a number of things. The rhetoric that he uses, it directly appeals to white supremacists, but then it appeals to those, we might describe them as white nationalists adjacent, those folk who hold those views but who don't express them, or those folk who are worried about immigration but don't really have a language to describe their worry. He gives them a language. People that you and I know, people that we love, who are buying into this stuff. And so the levels of it, the intimacy of it, right, makes it a very difficult nut to crack. But if we don't do what you're doing right now, and if we don't in our intimate spaces, right, call this out, all hell's gonna break loose.
It already has. It is every day in people's lives.
At this dynamic, I think, between
every day in people's lives, hell is breaking loose.
Neighborhoods divide school communities. It showed itself in the nastiness around COVID policies and stay home from school and masks and whatnot. It also infects, or that's probably the wrong word, it also seems to hamstring law enforcement, right? You're navigating an extraordinarily important and treasured principle in this country, freedom of speech, freedom of association, but you have, almost like a tumor wrapped around a spine or a blood vessel. You have it interconnected now with the threat. What do you do?
Well, I want to, before getting to law enforcement, I want to just comment on a few things that we've been talking about, because I think I've been one who for some period have agreed about not elevating his comments. But I think what has happened is two things. That means there still are plenty of people listening to them, and without speaking out against it forcefully, and you have, and we have on the show, but it is not headline news every day, and without speaking out forcefully, it has become normalized, and the rest of us are starting to become immune. I think we need to be playing his voice, saying the things, the violent things, the same kind of things that people like Duterte said when he ran for election in the Philippines. Somebody who went on to kill tens and thousands of his people, right? I think we need to actually start calling it what it is.
I hope if you disagreed, you would still be telling me right now. I mean, I'm glad you agree, but I hope that there's a day that you disagree.
Because
that's good to
I've
hear.
worked on this.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's not just about marginalized communities who clearly have been impacted. Everyone's impacted. I just came back from several days in Santa Fe with Republican leaders in Maricopa County, the county board of supervisor, the clerk's deputy there, right? Republicans are being attacked. Republicans are being threatened. But Republicans have had violence against them. Democrats,
because they're not doing their jobs.
Right? We talk about marginalized, and marginalized have had it worse than anybody, that's for sure. But this isn't something that, white people could sit there and say that's somebody else's problem. It is every American's problem, because it's coming after everyone who doesn't align with Trump. Anyone who's in law enforcement, white, black, Latino, doesn't matter. Anyone, frankly, who's in the military, look at General Milley. And what's really scary, this morning I did an interview with On Point for NPR, and they played vignettes, tapes of people in Iowa saying, yes, Milley should already be in front of a firing squad for what he did. I mean, that's insane. And I just think we're at an existential...
What do they think he did?
Well, that's the question, right? I mean, Trump's own social media post was pretty vague about it. Media, responsible fact-based media, have explained what he did, a call to Chinese leadership to say, it's okay, we have things under control. That was an authorized call by the Secretary of Defense. It doesn't matter. They don't listen to what it is. They just listen to his rhetoric. And I think if we don't start pushing back, and I really have flipped on this. I felt like we were giving him too much oxygen, that it was free publicity, but now I feel like everyone needs to be pushing back. And it is shameful for people on Capitol Hill, Republicans on Capitol Hill, not to be doing so. They've got the best voice to do it. And I've also, as you know, sometimes been hesitant to put party on this, because I really feel like, we will drive away some Republicans if we put party on it. But those on Capitol Hill, their silence is complicity, and we are getting too close to the election. And, well, I'm fired up, you can see.
No, I want to come out here and be told I'm wrong, right? I want to come out here with what I think the danger is and be told everything's fine. Nobody heard that. They think he's a buffoon. But that's not where we are. And my anxiety exists on multiple levels. But really, I think we spent 8 years trying to wrestle Trump to the ground. And it's fruitless. I mean, he's a helium balloon with the strings cut off, and he's speaking directly to his people. And we already know from January 6th what they can do. We know from Paul Pelosi's attacker what they can do. And historically, we know from Timothy McVeigh's brazen attack that it takes one person to terrorize an entire nation, one aggrieved person. He was pissed about Waco. Okay, the historical language echoes rhyme.
So that means that you're going along with what happened in Waco towards killing all them innocent children and etc.
Didn't go dark on this.
You showed up in the 30 Rock optimistic, and I ruined your...
Fascism is actually not that old. It started in the 1930s in Italy and Germany with the rise of the Nazi Party. And violent rhetoric and violence is as intrinsic to fascism as free speech is to democracy. What Mussolini did...
Say that again.
Violence is as intrinsic to fascism as free speech is to democracy. So what Mussolini did and what Hitler did was invocations of violent rhetoric. They started gangs that were beating up immigrants, beating up Jews, beating up minorities. It infested the...
Look what happened to me in 2005. Here I am passing out Bible literature telling people about the Lord Jesus Christ. And just so happens the guy that I was giving the information to, the teller that was on paper, I explained to him that there was so much controversy in my life that I'm probably going to wind up with an explosion of critics and I'm probably going to wind up on the news, and the next thing you know, the Martin PD drives all the way to Huntington to grab me up and charge me for falsifying files. In other words, I'm not allowed to speak. Well, according to my attorney, Dempsey, that I never should have hired, falsifying files is the same thing as pulling down a fire alarm. Well, they just had a senator or somebody in the White House that just pulled down a fire alarm. Did he get charged for falsifying files? Besides that, I didn't pull down a fire alarm. According to their statute, it also is considered standing in a theater crying fire, 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 and creating a stampede and people getting hurt. I wasn't in a theater. I didn't cry fire, fire, fire. So these people up here was purposely trying to basically ruin me. Right here in Weakley County that Tommy Moore's a part of. Tommy Moore and the rest of them up there was all a part of, because they knew good and well that officer that went from Martin, Tennessee in Weakley County to Carroll County without an assistant officer watching the arrest, and over some sort of crazy charge like that, over somebody passing out Bible material, was nothing more than an attack upon my rights. Just like it was an attack upon my rights whenever Homeland Security decided in 1989 that they was going to confiscate a $2 sword, a sword that could basically cost $20, and charge me with a deadly weapon, even though it took them 35-40 minutes of getting into the sword box and actually obtaining what was in the sword box that was to be used only at that time of a teaching tool. The sword was something you'd use in a play, like Sinbad and the Sailors. And not only did I get arrested, not only did I get charged, but I went to Madison County to protest that event, and that got me locked up in a mental institution for a couple weeks. Talk about standing on people's, tromping on people's humanitarian rights and their rights in general. Man, the founder of the Windmill Ministries has went through hell in the past 30 plus years. So you wonder how come that I'm making all these videos? Because I feel like this is my last resort in this quest, or in this crusade towards telling people who the villain actually is. And the villain are the people that's criticizing people like myself and people like Trump, that is speaking out because we have a runaway train. We have a runaway government. And if you can't see that and understand that, if you can't understand that entrapping a group of people that was doomsday preppers down in Mount Carmel in Waco, Texas, if you can't understand that was entirely wrong, if you can't understand that the day that it was all going down towards the shakedown, once they identified that their mission had been spoilt, that's whenever the supervisor or whoever was handling that situation down there should have said, you know what, the element of surprise is no longer in our favor. Let's cancel this. Let's do something different. Let's wait it out. Let's reapproach this whole situation. They didn't do that. They went ahead and pursued the shakedown, and the shakedown turned into a firestorm. Several agents got killed. 2 or 3 Davidians got killed. David Koresh got shot. I mean, here you are entrapping a group of people by selling them guns, preying on their minds, preying on their goodwill. And because they didn't pay a certain particular tax, you're going to go in there and blow the freaking place up and burn it up and kill about 70 freaking people? And you're going to sit here on national TV and say that was wrong in how that McVeigh, Timothy McVeigh and Nichols done what they done to the Oklahomans pertaining to the bombing, that they attacked the Mario building? I don't agree with taking the law into your own hands. I'll never agree with what Timothy McVeigh or Nichols done to the people in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. But I can understand where the concept come from. The concept come from a certain group of people, an agency working for the United States government, decided that they was going to go down to Waco, Texas, and do whatever that they wanted to do, and hoping that they was going to make a big headline and being able to beat their chest and walk around like a bunch of apes bragging about it. It just so happens it backfired on them. It backfired on them big time. Did it cost them people their lives? Yeah, it did. It costed them people their lives. But at the same time, it exposed the United States government towards what kind of people that we have in various agencies that's working for the government. I love my country. Don't get me wrong. I love my country. I've always loved my country, and I will continue to love my country for the rest of my days to the day that I die. But there's certain people within our government that has corrupted our government, that has stained our government, that has turned this government into something that it never was supposed to have been, pertaining to protecting and taking care of the American people. And I'm talking about protecting and taking care of the American legal people. I ain't talking about protecting illegal people, regardless whether they're Mexicans, Honduras, Russians, Chinese, Portuguese. It don't matter. If you're here illegal, you should suffer the consequences for being here illegal. You know why? Because if I do something illegal and they see it, I'm going to suffer the consequences of doing something illegal. So why shouldn't illegal migrants be punished for doing what they're doing illegal? They should. They should. So these newscasters that get on TV and say some of the stuff they say, they really don't understand the feelings of the true American people.
Was shirtless and had a holstered handgun approached the governor's office on the first floor of the Capitol around 2 p.m. Wednesday.
People are pissed. It's almost like they're deliberately provoking certain people so that they will take up arms and do crazy stuff.
9 p.m. with a loaded assault-style rifle. He again demanded to see the governor and was taken into custody. It comes amid growing threats of violence against elected officials. According to NPR, quote, in 2013, there were 38 arrests over violent threats to elected officials. Last year, there were 74. We're back with Mary, Rick, Eddie, and Jonathan. Mary.
So I think we're seeing exactly what Trump's rhetoric inspires. No, can I draw a line straight from Trump to this man in Wisconsin? No. But this is what we've seen for years.
Good, honest patriots here in America every day turn on the news and see something that has caused havoc or harm or hurt or death to our patriots, to the rest of the people that care about our country. And if they're not getting harmed in one way, they're getting harmed in another way. And in a sense, they feel like that they're being provoked, that you're deliberately pointing your finger and sticking it in our chest and saying, we dare you, we dare you, we dare you. Well, if you continue to do the people that way, eventually they'll accept your dare. That's what the people in January 6th done. They accepted the dare and they pursued it. Now, does that mean that I back or support what happened January the 6th? Absolutely not. Why? Because our government hasn't completely failed. Whenever our government completely fails, in which obviously it's heading in that direction, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure this out. You don't have to be a scientist to see what's happening. If and whenever this happens, then an insurrection by law is our right. Is our right to take up arms and get these people out of office that has created this mess to begin with. Like I said, a lot of us feel like that we're being provoked. You're steadily sticking your finger in our chest, telling you, "Hey, you can't do nothing about this. You can't do it. We're gonna let every illegal in the world come over here if we want to. You don't have no right in complaining. You don't have no right in doing this. You don't have no right in saying that. You don't have no right. Matter of fact, we're just gonna stick a gag order on you, or we're gonna contact certain people that's gonna wind up in your front yard." That's going to threaten to even take that much more of your liberty away. And even though we can't do lobotomies on you like they could back in the 1800s or the early 1900s, we can get a judge and a doctor and put them together and say, well, this guy is crazy and he's a harm to himself or a harm to others, and we can chemically do an lobotomy on you to the point that if you're not slobbering all over yourself, not knowing daylight from dark whenever you go in to some of these treatment centers, you will be before you come out, providing that you do ever come out. That's exactly what they wanted to do to me. They wanted me to go to MCC in downtown Chicago and be studied by Dr. Dana and start telling him all this spooky stuff. Ooh, the Antichrist. Ooh, the one world government. Ooh, the two witnesses. Ooh, the false prophet. Ooh, the mark of the beast, 666. To the point that it would have basically backfired on me. And all it would have taken was a doctor and a judge. The federal judge in Paducah could have went along with the federal doctor there working for MCC, and between the two of them, I wouldn't have just been examined. I would have literally been institutionalized, probably in Springfield, Missouri, because that's where they got the biggest federal mental health center associated with the federal prison system. And like I said, once you ever go in a treatment center like that, the odds of you coming back, especially coming back better than what you was before you ever left, is like slim to none. You know why? Because they can give you chemicals today, and if you take enough of them for a certain length of time, you don't never have to worry about having any type of sexual desires, because your sexual appetite will go completely away, not counting that if you was young and you did have a good sperm count, your sperm count won't no longer be any good to begin with. They can basically keep giving you these chemicals to the point that you're basically slobbering all over your shoes, bumping into the wall, not knowing daylight from dark, not knowing what year it is, what president is the president, not knowing none of the above, because now they have whacked you out with chemicals. These doctors, these psychiatric doctors, and a lot of these judges that does these to innocent people, they will stand in hell. There will be a special place in hell the way that they have brought this upon to we the people here in America. A special place in hell. The day of judgment.
Can we handle that conversation, right? Are we still a country that can have hard conversations?
If we can't handle it, Nicole, we're going to lose it.
You've done lost it. You've done lost it. That's our point that we're trying to make. You're $33 trillion in debt. We're spending $7 trillion a year, but only taking in $5 trillion. We're going $2 trillion on average every year backwards. And we have been doing that now since Ronald Reagan decided that he was no longer going to uphold or back the American dollar bill with bullion. We have had to raise the debt ceiling over 70-something times. They just basically done another kick in the can deal, and now within the next 30 days, they're going to have to debate on shutting down the government again. It's out of control. You have already lost control. These government agencies have lost control. We've got drugs, we've got crime, we've got gun violence, we've got people that's out of control. And you're still saying that the people that complain about these things are the people that's the villains? Just because we make remarks about our great nation and we tell what we tell about how these people have basically infested our great nation? You're going to tell us that we're the villains? No, 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 no. You're the people that's messed up here, okay? A matter of fact, I'll go a step further and say you're the villains, because you know the propaganda that you're spewing out to the American people right now is a bunch of BS, because the fact of the matter is this country has already lost control. It ain't like we're going to lose control. We've already lost control. between both parties. It don't matter if you put the blame off on the Republicans or you put the blame off on the Democrats. They need to be liquidated, politically speaking, from their positions. All of them. Go get jobs, maybe be an artist or something. Maybe go to a factory or something, you know, providing that you can find one. You know, all the factories have shut down because all the retail stores found it to be more appropriate to go get gizmos and gadgets on the other side of the ocean. And then haul them up here while people was losing their jobs. In the meantime, all the drugs got infestated up into our streets. And you're telling me that it's going to get out of control? These are the people that are out of control because they don't have a clue. We're talking about people that makes anywhere from $75 to maybe $150 to $250,000 a year that gets on TV and voices their opinion. But yet now, whenever somebody like me voices my opinion, or somebody else voices their opinion, or Donald Trump voices their opinion, all of a sudden we're supposed to put a gag order on them, put a piece of duct tape over their mouth so that we don't have to hear anything that they have to say.
In this country, when the choice is between living in a democracy.
These are the people, okay, that would have demonized the militia that stood up against the redcoats that put us where we are today. Because if that militia did not stand up, and we're talking about people taking up arms that was nothing more than practical farmers at the time. Some of them was merchants. Some of them was church people. Some of them was whatever. They wasn't never trained to do guerrilla warfare. Well, they had to do that. You know why they had to do that? To keep our great nation from being taken over by King George, I think it was the third. And if they didn't do that, we would still be under King George submissions. We would still be given to the great crown of Britain. Because people had the gumption, because people had enough sense, because people was patriots, they stood up against that type of aggression. And it looks like about the only way to stopping it now is to do it again. But the thing about it is, it's not the same as it was back then towards it being an invasion by another country per se, but it's our own people that has allowed this to get out of hand. And because of it, people like us feel like that we're being provoked because we can sit back and watch our government basically be torn to pieces to the point that one day our children, our grandchildren, and our children's children are going to be pulling on our coattails up in heaven during the great day of judgment, and they're going to be saying, Uncle Paul, or Daddy, or Daddy, Grandpa, how come y'all didn't stand up against that? How come y'all let that go on? How come y'all didn't stop all that stuff from happening? How come you let that indebtedness of $33 trillion fall up into our laps that we didn't have nothing to do with? How come you didn't stop all the drug cartels coming over to America? How come you didn't stop all the stuff that was happening to American people's rights? And if you didn't fight tooth and nail, if you didn't get up off your couch towards getting your hands out from underneath your hip sides, if you didn't get out there on the streets and get to voicing your opinion about all this stuff, then you know what? Your granddaughter, your grandson, your great granddaughter or grandson, or your niece or whatever, they got a right in questioning you and asking you, how come you let this happen? How come you didn't stand up towards stopping this from happening? What's going to be your answer? Whenever they look at you and they say, how come you didn't have the same sense and the same umption, the same courageousness as the people did in the 1700s that stood up against King George in stopping that aggression? How come? They're going to ask. And what's going to be your answer? Duh. I don't know. See, there's going to come a time that pleading the fifth or pleading insanity ain't going to work. It's not going to work. There's going to come a time that pleading out of sight, out of mind, pleading insanity is no longer going to be effective. And we have actually reached that state already pertaining to a government that is out of control. I mean, my God, the Speaker of the House didn't have a job but 9 months, and they've done already booted him out of his position. It's chaotic. It is absolutely chaotic in the White House right now and various government institutions. Just like it was chaotic in what happened to the Branch Davidians that, yes, David Koresh and Nichols opposed. I don't agree with what they done towards taking the law into their own hands, and I never will. But at the same time, if they didn't make that statement, I guess the rest of the world would have said, well, I guess they had it coming. I guess the Branch Davidians and all them children that got burned up had it coming, because they was concerned, like we're concerned now, in seeing what's happening towards preparing for it. So you gonna punish us the way that you punish them, Uncle Sam? Are you gonna come and knock on our door and burn us out? Are you gonna burn our children? Are you gonna make us suffer immensely because we're voicing our opinions about what we're seeing? The craziness is just as much on one side as it is the other. And whenever these media commentators get on TV and they want to slash, and it's all in regards towards Biden, I got news for them. Biden, as far as I'm concerned, has done just as piecey a poor job as the rest of the politicians that come in front of him. Going all the way back to, I guess, the Clintons. And I hate to say that because I actually voted for Clinton the first time. I don't think I voted for him the second time. But like a dummy, I did vote for Bill Clinton's vice president, pertaining to Al Gore, that even the people in the state of Tennessee didn't want to hold up. Because why? Because Al Gore was concerned about our future, pertaining to seeing the forces of nature get turned on us the way that it has. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The good people that are trying to do the right things are getting punished. And the bad people that have bamboozled the American people, that have allowed for all this stuff to occur, are basically still in power. Are basically still in power. But at the same time, I can look at how the Reagans, after Reagan got through doing what he done with the Russians, here come Bill Clinton coming off the coattail of Reagan, that spewed peace out of one side of his mouth, but went to war with the Iraqi people pertaining to Saddam Hussein. And as far as I'm concerned, the events that happened with Saddam Hussein helped to spawn 9/11. That was masterminded by the Saudi Arabian government, because we know for a fact the majority of the terrorists was born and come from there, including bin Laden. Our government has made mistake after mistake after mistake, and it's still making mistakes to this day towards not taking care of the American people. And I realize if I was in another country, I would have probably already had my door broken down, and they would have probably already burnt me down to the ground. Because in other countries, you don't have the right to speak out the way that I speak out about certain various government officials that began right here locally in Northwest Tennessee. Began right here locally at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255, going all the way back to 1983, whenever I was first attacked after a car had rolled over on me and I lost 9 units of blood and had 64 2-inch staples connecting both of my pieces of skin together on my torso area, my belly. And I get attacked by my own father. And then I go to Kenton and I try to get help. And the type of help that I got, because I was talking about the Antichrist and the one world government, the things that everybody now is talking about, I get institutionalized because of it. And basically my dad gets patted on the back. Well, what kind of imagery did that give him? Here I attacked my son, and I didn't get no trouble over that. I'd have to spend that one day in jail because of that. They should have charged me for attempted murder. And what did the police and the mayor and the officials do over in Kenton, Tennessee? Patted him on the back and branded me. And from then on, even though I had never ever been associated with the mental health communities, and the person that should have always been associated with the mental health communities pertaining to post-traumatic stress disorder of the scars that my dad got out of World War II, should have been my dad. It was my dad that should have went way before 1983 and had something done about his anger management issues. The way that he was abusing us and verbally abusing us and calling us stupid and dumb and grabbing us by the hair of the head and wind up with a whole handful of hair, or slapping us down because we made an honest mistake. It was the community that let us down, because they was watching this stuff happen to little children at the time. So you wonder how come things is unproportionately out of control? You got it. They have brought it up on to we the people. And if we the people don't stand up and take our government back over, it's only going to continue to fester, just like an old sore that every time you take the scab off, it festers up again, and sometimes, and usually, it'll fester up the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth time, worser than it did the first time. Because now you're agitating it. You're agitating the sore. You're making the sore even sorer. And the next thing you know, the sore gets infected. And the next thing you know, you got to go get a tetanus shot or whatever. Or if there's red streaks that come up in it. And the next thing you know, it's set up gangrene. And if you don't watch, you wind up having to lose your freaking arm or your hand or your foot or whatever over it. You got to pay close attention to the beginning manifestations of stuff like that. Just like the manifestations of stuff going on politically right now that has put us $33 trillion in debt. You wonder how come all the horror keeps coming out of the sky? You got it. You got it. God has turned his back on this great nation. And basically, it's Satan that's coming down in all these mass murders and rapists and drug cartels and all these storms and droughts and deluges. You got it. I've said all along, in the spirit world of them looking down at us looking up at them, it's a reflection. The crazier that the world becomes, the crazier that the weather becomes. The more wickedness that society becomes, the more wickeder that the forces of nature becomes. So yes, whenever the Bible says that Satan will come down in great wrath in the last days because he knoweth his days are short, that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. And I just pray every day that God be merciful unto me as a sinner, and I just pray that I'll continue to stay in the hollow hand of the Heavenly Father, and that I will do his will. That's one of the hardest things that I have to pray every time I end my prayer, or at the time that I'm fixing to end my prayer, is pray, Father, most of all, I pray that thy will be done. Not my will. Not the will of somebody down the road. Not the will of the political aspect of the American government. Not the political aspect of the Russian government. Not the political aspect of the Iranian or the China government. But the Heavenly Father's will. Regardless what that will is, I pray thy will be done. Because I know what side did I want to be on. I want to be on the creation side. I want to be on the side that says, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Come, enter into the joy of the Lord, for I will make thee ruler over many. For you have been faithful over few, I will make thee ruler over many. That's the side that I'm striving towards. I don't know what side everybody else is striving towards, but that's the side that I'm striving towards. And if you're not willing to get off your rump, voice your opinion, make a video, get on social media platform, stand outside with a sign, get permission before you get an enhanced talking device, regardless whether it's a PA or whatever. But whenever you don't have a enhanced speaking device, you're supposed to be able to get out on the streets with a Bible and signs and express your feelings about your government here in the United States. It's called protest. It's called protesting. And whenever you have somebody either arrested or put in a mental institution, or you threaten to come down here with the authorities that if you don't go get okayed by a doctor, we're going to consider that a probation violation, and you will be going to jail, Mr. Jackson, if you don't go to some sort of psychiatric doctor and have them evaluate you to sign off on some paperwork to say that you're okay to be out in the public. And they said it, they meant it. It was my probation officer, her supervisor, and a deputy out in my front yard because of what I said to a teller in Humphreys County, Waverly, Tennessee. The same type of ordeal happened to me whenever I was passing out Bible literature, once more, to a teller in Martin, Tennessee. Bible literature now about the Lord Jesus Christ. And I made mention that there was going to be an explosion of controversy. And they took that and tried to use it like I was some sort of a Timothy McVeigh. Or like I was Bin Laden himself. So you can't tell me that the founder of the Windmill Ministries missions has not been violated and attacked again and again and again and again and again. And the whole time I've been preaching not only the message coming from the Lord Jesus Christ, but the whole book of the Bible pertaining to end-time biblical Bible prophecies. I've been trying to warn people that these things are coming on us. These things are coming on us. Just like last year, whenever the droughts all hit and the Mississippi River got so low, they had to stop the barges. As far as I know, the river's still low this year to the point that they had to do it again. Now we got a little bit of rain, may have helped a little bit, but the ground is so dry, you would probably have to have either deluges or it would have to set in raining day after day after day, and he'd probably have to rain almost for a month before you'd get the level of the river back up again. And you're not going to get the level of the river back up again by it only raining in, let's say, eastern Missouri and parts of eastern Arkansas and western Tennessee and western Kentucky. You got to get a big enough cell, and it's got to be consistent enough, and the ground's got to be saturated enough to where you now get the same flow from spring to next winter. Well, that's not what we've seen. And it's not just our continent that's acting weird and crazy pertaining to water evaporations, but now it's happening all over the 7 continents. You got people that's warning you, just like Al Gore. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. The British is coming, the British is coming. What would have happened if those people, I forgot the guy's name, I ought to know it by heart. What would have happened if those people did not pay close enough attention whenever that guy that was saying, the British is coming, the British is coming, if they would have ignored that? You know what would have happened? Me and you today, we would still be under British rule. That's what would have happened. Good luck to all of us. God bless America. God bless our troops, especially our troops. God bless our endeavors towards where we go from here. And as I end this program by saying good luck to each and every one of us towards where our future lies in ongoing events on a day-to-day basis.
Look, it's a really painful and tough thing to hear, to read about, even as we have learned not to be surprised by that sort of thing. I think about the people I served with who were injured, and I think about some people who were injured and then I served with them because they came right.
Sometimes you're liable to hear me say stuff.
They came right.
And I'll paraphrase it this way. That way I know that it won't get me in trouble, like it has Donald Trump by him saying what he said against this member of the military. Is I'll say stuff like, if we was living in the 1800s, either before the Civil War or shortly after the Civil War, there are certain politicians that they would literally line up on a wall and they would execute. So you got to be careful in the way that you illustrate your messages before the people, because if you don't, they'll take it all out of context, and the next thing you know, oh, he threatened that man, he threatened that man, he threatened that man. Donald Trump did not threaten this officer. Donald Trump was sharing his opinion about saying that as far as he was concerned, I don't know what he's done. I have no idea towards what the gripe is. But whatever it is, apparently Donald Trump must have thought it was really, really bad to put him in the category of that. But there's been certain people that I've looked at pertaining to politicians that's done either crazy things or horrifying things to the American people that I've used illustrations towards going back into the Civil War era or before the Civil War era by saying if those people was to do what they're doing today, they would be executed during that time frame of whenever they was doing stuff like that towards manning the boat. And that's exactly what we're probably going to have to end up doing to be able to take control back over our country, to be able to man the boat the way that the boat needs to be manned, because it's out of control. I don't want to think that it's going to do that. I'd much rather see diplomacy any day towards people sitting down and talking. But whenever you're being attacked, like my brother and I was being attacked on a day-to-day level, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a day, having to call the Weakley County Sheriff's Department out here, sometimes twice a month, every month, for a period of 3 years, whenever you're getting hounded, whenever you're getting hunted, whenever you're getting tormented like that, sometimes the only thing left is to pick up arms and become violent. And that's exactly what the officials in this county and in this state wanted. They was wanting my brother and I to shoot ourselves in the foot. And it didn't matter if we took the law into our own hands, and it would have been justifiable. In their eyes, we done wrong, and we're the ones going to pay for it, even though we was the ones that was being victimized on a day-to-day, 3-year consecutive, consistent level. That's the reason why I say Tommy Moore, Thompson, Pence, all of them up there need to be disbanded from their positions, need to be mocked, need to be made a mockery of. And I'm sure that if it's happened to me, there's been other people in this county that it's happened to as well, that they have sat back and allowed for certain people to demonize them and dehumanize them, while they basically didn't have a snowball chance in hell in Weakley County Sheriff's Department defending them. Now, the Weakley County Sheriff's Department come out here every time they was called. I can't complain about that particular sheriff agency because they did do their jobs. But it was the other people that wasn't doing their jobs. Especially whenever you have somebody like Johnson that looks at my brother and I at the same time and say, you, Dennis, I'm not going to bat in your corner. You, David, I will. I thought the police is supposed to protect everybody, especially if you did do something wrong. You have paid your penalty to society, and now you're trying to make a clean slate at it again. But according to Johnson, I wasn't worthy of his protection. Neither coming from the judge or anybody else. The sheriff, he was protecting his administration at the time in this county, because he knew that if somebody had called him to a scene, that they at least needed to come out here and look at it and assess the problem toward trying to figure out what was going on. I think probably over half, maybe, I'm probably even conservative about what I'm saying, over half of the police force that was under the pretense of Mike Wilson from the year 2014 to the time that my brother died in 2017 knew exactly what was going on out here at 430 Beach Grove Road or 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. They knew exactly what was happening. But because they're not in control of the prosecuting attorneys, they're not in control of the probation officers, they're not in control of basically the judges, those poor people got to basically do whatever that their commanding officer tells them to do. It's bad. It's bad, and it's getting worse. And then we get, commentaries that get on TV and want to degrade people for having a patriotic heart for their country. And that's what's even worse. That's what's even worse. Good luck to all of us is all I got to say. God bless America. God bless our troops. And heaven, please help us all. Shalom.